This episode of Love Larn is sponsored by Scott Bonnar Fabrication and Parts. It's time to get this intermediate clutch bracket assembly into place today. It fits on the side of the machine like so, obviously with the outer sprocket in place as well, which I've just taken off to make this part of the assembly a little bit lighter while I'm getting it all back together, just things aren't moving around on us too much. It bolts through this hole over here, the center shaft pokes through there, and then we have this elongated slot for adjusting things to and fro. The back plate of this bracket has the two elongated slots as well, so we can shift it one way or the other depending on how we need to move it. Normally we use the cup head bolts for mounting that bracket on the side of the machine. It's got a little sort of square section through here which registers against that slot. On the solid deck machine we've got the one bolt down there, and this little bit which receives the end of the clutch cable, or part of it anyway, bolts onto the back side of the chassis through here, and this bolt pokes through that hole to give us that upper support. So we'll need to put that back in at the same time. In addition to all of that, we've got this little operating lever which sort of sits up on the inside of the machine, sort of like so, and when we pull the clutch lever it engages, it pivots on the bolt which passes through that hole and engages the clutch. I'll show you that working once we're all back together. Finally, it's worth noting that this bolt that passes through our clutch has an extra thick washer on there. This is part of the set from Cameron Petrie, the stainless set. I believe that's a hardened washer because the original washers were prone to bending a little bit. And apparently this one will last a lifetime. I might put a little bit of grease on that shaft once we're a little bit further along. But for now, we'll start by getting this guy in place. The first order of business will be to mount this thing. I've got a slot there with a threaded hole here. Can I remember whether that goes up or down? No, I cannot. But I do know that we've got two holes here. There's a small hole and a large hole. So I'm going to stick it in sort of like that. Interestingly, this bolt comes out. This bolt on this particular machine is sort of welded in place. So I had a bit of powder coating left over on the shank of that bolt that needed to be filed off, and it should fit through quite nicely now. I'm going to just pop a little tiny bit of grease on there just to protect that metal surface going forward, and then we'll chuck it in there. So the small bolt up there receives a little star washer, and the small bolt, just get it done up finger tight. It's always a little bit unnerving mounting one of those star washers directly against the your paintwork, but that's the way it's supposed to go, I believe. In terms of the orientation, obviously we've got sort of a short side and a long side. So we want this mounted so that the short side is facing up. I'll get my bolt ready as well, so that it can be fed through here. And with some chance of holding everything in place. It's sort of one of those things where a third hand would be handy as well. So our flat washer, our spring washer, our split washer, and our bolt. On the top there, we'll just slide that loosely into position. And then down the bottom, one flat washer and split one bolt. And we'll do that up just finger tight for now. So you can see back here we've mounted that bracket from that side of the inside of the frame, which is how it needs to go. Next we've got our long bolt and this operating lever to install. So it's got a hole for that bolt to pass through like so, and it's got a little slot up there at the top as well, through which the end of our clutch lever passes, the clutch cable, to operate that lever. And before we put that in place, we'll grab the outer sprocket as well. So if you recall, there's a little roll pin sitting inside of the center of that bearing. There's the slot on this shaft, so that goes in like that. I think I'm going to add a little tiny bit of grease to this shaft as well. It shouldn't be moving because it will be registered against that that roll pin, but nonetheless, we'll just keep it greasy for future disassembly. So we're going to check the position of that that slot, try and line up the pin, and slide that home just like so. This bolt's not actually rotating or moving, as far as I know. So I'm just going to pop a bit of grease on it anyway. It's stainless steel, so it's not going to really be much of an issue, but I am using my moly grease here just for compatibility with the different metals, I guess. And we'll slip it through there like so. And grab our operating lever and reach around the back to line up the hole. Now I've got that bracket in place, that U-shaped bracket sitting on the back here, so that's going to go down through the inside of that, and then we'll pass the bolt through the hole, and then we'll get the nut on the back side of that. I've got the little nylock bolt for the end of this, just going to mount that in my pliers and try and get it threaded as best we can. Just turning the bolt itself from the outside. I think that's on there now. And what have I got? A little 11mm spanner, if you don't have the metric the imperial equivalent. Now, I'm going to tighten that up a bit. We don't want to go all the way with it. And I'll show you why, in case you haven't watched the disassembly video. So right now, if I hold the back section of that clutch plate in half and try and spin the outer sprocket, it sort of moves. It's a little bit on the snug side, but we probably want a little bit more play in that. So this bolt should be looser. These two plates should have maybe, I don't know, 1/2 mil of free play between them. So I'm going to back that off a touch and see where we're going. So that's, you can see that gap will open up a little bit. And if we pretend that we've got the clutch cable in place here and operate that lever, you can see how that pulls that outer sprocket close up to the corks, and we then engage the rear roller effectively, indirectly. And when we release it, that's then free to spin, or idle, I guess, until we engage the clutch again. So that bit of movement is probably what we want. There's, I don't know, maybe not even 1/2 mil in there. We'll adjust that as we need to in the future. The concern is that if we don't get that right, is that we'll be working fine, we'll be able to pull our clutch lever and advance the machine. But when we disengage the clutch and want to roll the machine backwards, that clutch won't disengage essentially, and the machine will want to continue moving forward and you'll be working against it essentially. So that's our intermediate clutch in place now. I'm just sighting down sort of over the top here to ensure that the small intermediate clutch sprocket is sitting directly over the drum sprocket. It's pretty good. I think once we get that bolt tightened down and pull this this bracket up close to the chassis, then we'll be in good shape. So the next thing we can do is get the small chain in place before we start getting anything else in the way of all of that.